Okay, so before I go ahead, I would like to share my screen. I will need you to confirm if my screen is visible at your hand. I have a question from Vincent. Okay. So before we go ahead, I need to confirm if you all can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can we all see my screen? Okay, great. Now, so these are the 5 important things you must know highlighted right here. All right. So one thing I need to quickly add is that we are going to be discussing how this particular feature works on 2 versions of the QuickBooks. So we are going to look at the cloud version, that is the online version, as well as the on-premise, that is the desktop version. So we'll look at both because there's a little bit difference in each of these versions. All right. So the first thing we have here, that before you go ahead to use this feature on any of the versions you find yourself working on, you have to first of all ensure that you have set these classes up properly and you have turned that feature on, because by default you don't have that feature on any of those versions. All right. So the first thing we need to do is to ensure that we have turned on this particular feature and it has been set up properly. All right. So let's take that one after the other. So like I said, we'll be looking at the 2 versions. Now, this is the on-premise version, that is your QuickBooks desktop. So how do we set up this feature here and how do we turn it on? All right. So to do that, you go to your preferences. And how do you access your preferences? You come to edit, then you go to preferences, then under the accounting section, you go to your company preferences. All right. So you're going to see a particular section that has to do with class. All right. So here you have to turn it on. You're just going to tick this, that use class tracking for transaction. All right. But after ticking this feature, you are going to discover that you have 2 other options here. The first one is to prompt to assign classes. So what this means basically is that you want the system to always notify you at the point when you want to save your transactions that you have actually not linked this particular transaction to a class. All right, so that before you save, you are going to confirm what business area, what investment center, what responsibility center, what business division does this class belongs to. All right. Then aside from that, you also have the option to assign your classes either to accounts, to items, or names. All right. Now let me explain this to you. The account here means basically that you want to be able to assign classes to your chart of accounts, such that anytime you are setting up your charts, you want to be able to specify that this particular class, this particular chart of account belongs to this class. All right. Then the second option is that you want to assign classes to items. That is, of course, your inventory items, the item you buy and sell, or the services you render. All right. Then the last one is names. So what this simply means is that you want to be able to assign classes to names. So what we mean by names here basically are your customers and vendors. All right. So now you agree with me that if you assign this class to a particular section, it's going to be biased in one way or the other. So the best way is to leave it on tick so that we can be able to work with this class on all areas. So you can work with classes from your chart of accounts, you can work with classes from your items, you can work with classes with names, and also from all other sections or all other activities from each business areas. All right, so you are going to untick that, right? So you click OK. Right, so we have set up the class here. Now let's look at the other version, which happens to be the QuickBooks Online. So we actually go to the settings side. So at the upper right hand side there, you click on the settings button. Then you go to your account and setting. Alright, then you come to the advanced section, you click OK. Then you scroll down. You are going to see two areas here. You are going to see track classes. Alright, so you are going to click on this radio button to turn it on. Then you are also going to see, immediately you turn it on, you are going to see another option here, which signifies that one means when a transaction is not assigned to a class. So what that means basically is that you want the system to give a prompt. It's going to give you a prompt anytime you want to save any transaction. So there's going to be a pop-up to confirm, in case you did not link the transaction to any business area, which we use as class in this case, then it's going to pop up to say that you have not assigned, so you have to do that before you save, just to confirm that you have assigned the transaction to a particular class. And if the transaction does not belong to another class, then you can go ahead and save. But of course, if you tick this option, it's going to pop it up for you to confirm before you save your transaction. Alright, then here you have another two options here on how you want to assign your classes. Either you want to assign one to entire transaction, or you want to assign one to each row in transaction. So what that means is that if you carry out the transaction sometimes, and the transaction, probably one transaction belongs to different areas, and it's just one single transaction, but you have different breakdowns. So of course, you want to link each of the transaction one after the other to each of the business areas. Alright, so it's better you use one to each row in transactions. Alright, so you go ahead and save. Okay, now there's something you'll be wondering, that how come you don't have locations on the on-premise version. Now one thing you need to know is that you don't have locations here, and in this case your classes is used in place for location. So you use both. If you have different locations in different areas, then you can treat that as classes. Alright, if you have different business divisions, location in several parts of in a particular area, then in that case you are going to use class interchangeably. However, for the versions of the on-premise from 2021 and above versions, we now have a new feature for location. So we call them sites. Alright, so the site basically is used for multi-locations, businesses with multi-locations, multi-warehouses, multi-sites. Alright, so we use that word site. That's what we use to replace the location. So you have that in the 2021 and above versions. Alright, but in this case, your classes on the on-premise version here is used in place for location, so you use both together. Alright, but on the online version, you discover that we have them separately. So in this case, you can use classes for business area, and you can use location in real time for different locations you have for in a particular business. Alright, so in that case, you just also click on this radio button to turn it on. Alright, so most of the time you can decide to also use them interchangeably here, to also use the location in place of classes. But in the case whereby you have different locations, different business divisions, which you want to try for different business areas, so you can use the classes for the business areas, while the location will be those divisions. Alright, so after turning it on, you save. Now another thing you need to know about locations here is that when you make use of location, you can customize each of these locations how you want them to appear on your transaction forms. For instance, each of these locations have their own correspondence, the contact details, email address, business address, phone numbers, and the likes, website. So you want to customize them separately on how you want them to appear on your transaction form for each of those locations. Of course, yes, you can do that. By the time you are setting up location here, you are going to see. Alright, so that is your first step here. That is to ensure that you have actually turned on this particular location feature. Alright, now hypothetically, let's say we have a business where we have 3 different business areas which we want to monitor the activities separately. There is the retail section that deals with buying and selling of retail products, and there is the logistics section that deals with delivery and movement of the item that is being bought to the respective customers, and there is the aspect that deals with consulting. Alright, so these are different business areas, and of course we want to monitor their activities individually. Alright, so let's go ahead and set up each of these areas right here. Now, to set it up, we have actually turned on the class feature. So what you do is go to your lists, alright, from your menu bar, then you go to your class lists. So you discover here that we have nothing. Then right on down part here, you're going to click on this drop down where you have class, then you click on new. Alright, so our first business area is retail. Alright, so click on OK. Then of course you have another one. We have logistics. Alright, and we have the consulting. Okay, so these are the business areas. Then we'll come right here on the online version to also do the same. So to set up your classes here, you come to your settings. So you click on settings at the upper right hand side, then you come to all lists. Alright, so you can see your classes here, so you click on classes. Alright, so you can see we have nothing here. So at the upper right hand side, you click on new. Then you have delivery. Okay, we have retail. Then you have delivery. Alright. Then you have consulting. So let's change the delivery to logistics. So you click on the drop down and click on edit. Then you have logistics. Alright, so that is how you set up your classes here. Now, you'll be wondering that you have when you click on new, you have the subclass here. So what you use the subclass to do is that, on each of these classes, on each of these business areas, you might also have additional breakdowns. For instance, in the logistics section, we might have the truck logistics and we might have the bike. So you might want to break that down to monitor the performance for each of these sections. So you can go ahead and do that. Just click on new. So you can call this the truck. So this is going to be a subclass to logistics. Then you do the same You have the bike. This is also going to be a subclass to your logistic here, then save. Can you see that? So each of these now, if you just want to see the overall performance for logistics, and you can also see for the breakdown of each of these areas. All right, so let's repeat the same thing here. So let's say we have the truck. So you tick this, that is going to be a subclass. Then you also have the bike, which is also going to be a subclass. All right. Now, so that is about the first step. So the second step here, now we have set up the classes and locations. Now, let's take a look at setting up your locations here. So your locations basically is just the areas where you have the business, where you want to monitor their performance. For instance, you have a branch in you have in Abuja, you have in Port Harcourt, you have in several areas where you want to monitor each of their activities. All right, such that you want to know which location is performing better and which one is performing below. All right, so to set up your location here, so also make use of the settings. So you come to all lists. So you scroll down. So you have locations. So at the upper right hand side, you click on new. All right, so the name. So here, let's say we have a location, just the name of the area. We have Abuja. Now, this is what I was saying earlier. You have various options here. This is saying this is a sub-location. So if you say it's a sub-location, then it is under what location? So what this means, for instance, if you have a location to be at Lagos as a name, for instance, it might be a sub. If I have a location, let's say Ikeja, might be a sub-location to Lagos. If you have a location to be Victoria Island, it might be a sub-location to Lagos. All right, so that is what this means. So we have Abuja. Then this location has a different title for sales form. All right, so what name? If you don't want the name of the company to appear on your sales form, so this can be the name of the company. Then you have dash the name of the location for clarity. All right, so you also have this location has a different company name when communicating with customers. So what this means basically is that you want to also specify if this location will also have a separate name distinct from the company name, what you want to appear on the transaction form, that is your customer forms, your sales form, your invoices, your receipts, your credit notes. All right, other option you have here, this location has a different address where customers contact me or send payment. So the address is different from the company address, so you are going to fix that in here. All right, so basically you are just trying to bring all of that information for that location distinct from the information of the business. So quite all right. If you have a location in Abuja, definitely the business address is going to be different from the main company's address. All right, so this is where you are going to fix that in, and that is how it's going to appear on your customer transaction forms. All right, then you also have this location as a different email address. So this is the email address of the company. So if the email address of this location is different, so maybe you have Abuja at all right, then you also have this location as a different phone number where customers can phone me. So if the phone number here is quite different from the one for the business, so you're going to input that here. So when you are done, you go ahead and save. Okay, so this is your location. On the other hand, If you are setting up a location on the on-premise version, so you are going to set that up just like a normal class. All right, so this can just be a normal class. You have Abuja, then you click on OK. So if this is going to be a subclass to other location, probably you have Maitama, you have one in Wuse, so you can bring that in here and make them a subclass. So that basically means a sub-location to Abuja. All right, so that is about setting up your classes and location. And take notes, it's not about you setting it up. You need to know what we use this feature for. So basically, this feature is used. So this feature is used basically for if you have some business areas which you want to monitor their activities independently, individually, and in group. So you have different sections of the business that you want to monitor their performance separately to know how they are performing. Then definitely that is when you are going to use the class and location feature. All right, you have your investment centers, you are just opening a new branch, you have different revenue centers, you have responsibility centers, you have a subsidiary, you're a parent company to various subsidiaries, you have a joint venture with other companies. So you want to know what this business area is contributing, what is their performance. So there's a need for you to set them up as a class so that you'll be able to monitor the activities individually and in group for the whole company as a whole. All right, so that is the essence. But take notes, the use of the classes and location feature goes beyond the setting up. The setting up is just the primary aspect. It's just the basic aspect. It's just the very easy aspect. So most importantly, one other thing you need to take note of is that this is actually a software and it is not a magic. So this is going to give you the result you are going to get as a result of your input and processing. All right, so it's one thing for you to set them up, which is just like the basic part anyway. You also need to ensure that you link all your various transactions one after the other. You're going to tell the system what business areas each of these transactions belongs to before you go ahead and save, because it's when you link them to that classes or to those locations, that is when you will be able to get an accurate report on each of these areas. All right, so a quick recap: you only turn your classes and location features on when you have some business areas, some business divisions, some investment centers, some responsibility centers, some subsidiaries, some joint ventures, which you know that, and some locations. You want to monitor their activities and performance, their position, their cash flow individually, and you also want to know in group, just for you to be able to make some management decisions. All right, so that's about the first important thing you need to know, which I just explained. Then the second thing you need to know is the differences between the class tracking feature on the QuickBooks desktop, that is the on-premise, and the online. And that's what I just explained earlier, that on the online you have both classes and locations separately. You can turn them on differently and use your classes for business areas. You use the normal location as the name implies. For your business locations, you have business in different areas. You have in Lagos alone, you have them in Ikeja, you have in Island, you have everywhere, which you want to monitor their performance individually. All right. On the other hand, you can use the location for those locations, right? Then on the other hand, for the on-premise version, you only have the classes and you can use them interchangeably. So on the desktop version, you use the classes for both your business areas and locations, so you use them together. All right. However, if you prior to 2021 version, from the 2021 version and above, we have a new feature called site, S-I-T-E. So the site is what is regarded as location. So basically, you use this site for when you have multiple locations, you have multiple warehouses, you have multiple retail outlets. This is what we now regard to as location, where you can track the performance and movement of items between each of these locations one after the other. All right, so that's the basic difference. Irrespective, aside from that, the way you link them to transaction, the way you set them up remains the same. So that is the second thing. Now, the third most important thing you need to know is, how do you now set up all your accounting activities to work in line with your classes and location. All right, but before I go ahead, I would like to get some questions and feedback. So I want to really be sure that we all are on the same page.
Good afternoon. Or good evening, Mr.
Yes, good evening.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I just came in, so I'm trying to maintain the whole thing. If you can just please briefly summarize what this is about. Thank you.
Okay, any more question?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, good evening.
I just want to say you made a good presentation concerning the class application.
Okay.
Well, that's how it really works. Thanks so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Any more question? Okay, from Mr. Azuka. So now the thing is that you can't just see it on that your version you are using. You need to turn it on. It's because it's off. It is because it's still off. I'm talking to Mr. Monday now. It is because it is still off. That is why you can't see it yet on the software. Just like we did here. You know, we have to turn on both the classes and location first before we now go ahead to set them up. Without turning it on, you can't even see it anywhere on the software. So for your 2021 version you are using, definitely you have to turn it on. So after turning it on, then you are going to you'll be able to see the site. So another thing you need to know is that this really works well for an inventory related business. So where you have multiple warehouses, where you move items, you move your items, you have a central warehouse in Lagos, you move items from Lagos to Abuja, from Abuja to Port Harcourt and all of that. That is where this site really comes handy, all right? But you can also use it for other locations if the company is a service-based entity, all right? So until you turn it on before you'll be able to see that. So that answers the question. So the other question, can I use location for a JV? Yeah, of course, yes. You can use a class for your JV. You know, the essence of the JV also, most of the time, is for you to know how much money is coming to you from this particular joint venture arrangement. How much expenses have you incurred? What are your investments in the JV and all of that? And how much profit are you making from the joint venture with the other guys? All right. So the essence of classes generally, like I said earlier, is just that you want to be able to analyze various segments of the business. You want to be able to analyze various business areas such that you'll be able to know how much each of these guys are making. What is their contribution in total to the overall stuff the company is doing. So that is the basic essence. So it's not until when you have different locations, you have location in Abuja, you have location here and there, that is when you start using this feature. But when you discover that there are various business areas, most especially you have a conglomerate, you are diverting into different product service line, you deal with you sell product, you also deal with delivery. Aside from doing delivery, you also do other services. You do supplies to other retail outlets. So at each of these areas now becomes a segment. It becomes a business area which you really need to monitor their performance, just for you to know that which of this area is doing more. However, you can do that from your chart of accounts, but it is not going to be easy. When you do that via your chart of account, what I mean is that when you set up your chart of account for each of these product service line, when you set them up and every transaction is going to their various chart of account, it is going to be easy for income and cost of sales. But for your expenses, are you going to have telephone expenses for retail outlet alone? Are you going to have telephone expenses for delivery alone? So it's just going to be one telephone expense for all of these guys. So it is better you now make use of classes to further break it down so that you can see what profits at a glance each of these service line are doing. So you'll be able to know where you are going to concentrate more effort in terms of the resources you are going to pull over to all of those sides for you to get enough result. All right. So now another question here, I think it works well on departmental accounting. Of course, yes. Of course, yeah, it works more in that area. All your departments, either they are cost centers or revenue centers, but at a glance, you just want to know how much money. The way you pay your salary, you pay your admin department, your finance, your HR, your operations, your sales, your marketing, and you want to know which department is just taking the whole money and they are not generating anything. It can be funny most times when your department is full of cost centers. There are still some departments that are revenue centers, like sales department. They are bringing in money on board, and as well they are also spending out. So, but those ones that are cost center, you want to know, as far as they are even cost center, they are not generating anything in cash, right? They might be generating something in terms of the overall growth, but they are not generating anything in cash. Then you might need to know how much money these guys are spending. So in summary, because of time constraints, you use your classes for further categorizing your transaction into business areas instead of using your chart of account. Using your chart of account, it might be so limited and you might not be able to get, because your chart of account, when you run your reports, is going to combine everything together. So the use of the classes for you to be able to now see for each of these areas one after the other. All right. So one more question. So basically, classes and location can be used. Yes, of course. If you are using the enterprise, you use them interchangeably. But if you are making use of the QuickBooks Online, you have them separately. There is the location separately, and there is the class separately. And you can see the way each of this stuff is being set up and what are their peculiarities. All right. Now another thing here, I don't have the software. Are you giving? Okay, fine. Of course, yes. I'm going to give a link to download the software immediately after this class. But you need to take note that it's actually a trial and it is for 30 days. So you can only use it for 30 days. Then afterwards, you can't use that again. All right. So another thing I need to quickly chip in is that for everybody we have here, we're going to issue just a certificate just for participating. And that's going to be at the end of the whole section. All right. So that's about that. So there was a question earlier saying I should recap. Do I still need to recap, or have been able to cover some areas from this my little explanation? Can you respond so that we can proceed?
Please, I'll need you to recap, to be honest.
Okay, no problem. So I can do that in 2-3 minutes. All right. So far, what we have been discussing is about your classes and location. So for those that are just joining for the first time, I think since for a couple of months now, probably 4 or 5 months, we have actually been on the monthly webinar stuff, free webinars, just to educate you more, basically on financial reporting and on the usage of QuickBooks, to be precise. All right. So last month we actually talked about the use of multiple currencies when you deal with companies that the customer pay them in foreign currency. They transfer foreign currency between different accounts. They pay offshore money in foreign currency and all of that. So there's a video recording for that. For those of you that missed that, at the end of this webinar, you can request for a download link for the video. All right. So that is one. So to answer your question, basically, you don't use the classes and location features anyhow. So the classes and location feature is used for categorizing each of our business areas. So if you have some of your business areas, your business segments, your responsibility centers, investment centers, different branches, different business divisions, only one business you are into, oil and gas servicing, you are into supply of oil products, you are into exploration of oil and all of that, and these are different areas. So you want to know at every point in time what each of these areas are contributing generally, individually to the company. So that is when you make use of your classes. So classes, as the name implies, is to classify your transactions into different business areas such that at the end of the day, you'll be able to see at a glance the contribution of each of these areas to the business as a whole. All right. Then we also have the location feature. So one thing I said is that before you make use of the classes or location, you need to turn it on. So I can quickly take you through how to turn that on. So this is, like I said, we are looking at both the QuickBooks Online and the desktop. When you're working on the desktop, to turn on the class feature, so before you use it, you need to ensure that it is turned on. All right, it's not just a feature you just have on automatically. All right, because of the peculiarity, you don't just use it anyhow. All right, so you have to turn them on before you use. So to turn it on, you go to your preferences by clicking on edit on your menu bar. You go to preferences, then come to accounting, you click on company preferences, and this is the class section. So you turn it on, just say use class tracking for transactions. All right, then there's another feature here, prompt to assign classes. So what this means basically is that you want the system to be able to prompt to notify you that you have actually not assigned. In case you are posting your transactions, it should notify you that you have not assigned that any transaction to a class, so that you'll be able to take notes before you save. So there's always going to be a pop-up anytime you save your transaction, so that it will prompt you to assign that transaction to a class before you save. And if the transaction does not belong to any class, you just leave that and save. All right. Then the other one is to assign your classes. You have the option of assigning it to account. That is, you want the option that when you are creating your chart of accounts, you want to be able to specify that this chart of account belongs to this class. Then you have the items. So what this means is that when you are creating your inventory item, you want to specify that this inventory item belongs to this class. Then the third one is for names. So this is basically for your customers and suppliers. When you are creating them, you want to specify that this customer and supplier belongs to this particular class. All right. So that is the essence. But one thing you need to know is that we don't want the class to be specific to a particular section. You know, all these are a particular section of all our accounting activities. All right. So we don't want it to be particular. So we want it to be on all the activities as a whole. All right. So you're going to turn that off. So I'm going to click on OK. So that is about turning it on here. Then if you're using the online version, to turn your class on, basically, so you do that from at the upper right hand side. You can see the settings button. Then you click on account and settings. Then you can see under you click on the advanced section. All right. So you can see under the categories here, you can see the two options, the track classes and track location. So you just turn that on. And you can see that we also have the same thing here where it says warn me when a transaction is not assigned to a class. So basically what this means is that you want the system to notify you anytime you are saving when a particular transaction is not assigned to a class. All right. So you go ahead and save. So this is where you also set up your location. All right. So that is about that. Then another thing I added is that in setting up your classes, so on your QuickBooks Online, you can see that we have both the class and location. But if you are using the on-premise, you have only class. So you use them interchangeably on the desktop version. When you have location, you also set them up as a class. All right. However, if you are using any version from 2021 and above, there's a new feature for site. So site here is also used in place for location. So you can use the site feature. But prior to that, you use the classes interchangeably for both your classes and location. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question. Can I proceed?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now the next third thing you need to know is how to set up all your accounting activities, your customers, your vendors, your inventory items, your chart of account, and so on for each business areas. All right. So now, first thing you need to know is that if each of these business areas is a location, that is number one thing you need to take note here. In this third thing you need to know is if each of these business area is a location, or each of these business area is just like a product or service line that you want to monitor individually. So if that is the case, if it's a product or service line, that means for your customers, you don't need to have more than one customer because it's still the same customer. All right. Then if it is a vendor, you don't need to have more than one vendor. It's still the same vendor. And if it is an inventory item, the item you buy and resell, or the item you produce, or the services you render, it's still the same service. It's just that you have them for each of your business areas. And for your chart of account, it's still the same chart of account. So you don't need to break that down. All right. However, if it is for different locations, probably you have Abuja, you have Port Harcourt, and you even have different locations within a particular state. Probably in Lagos, there's the one in the VIA, in Ikeja, and so on. All right. So if that is the case, it means that if a particular customer, you have different customers in each of those locations, so you have to set all of them up. All right. But if you have one customer that buy a product from you from all of these locations, then it means that you just have that one customer. But what I'm trying to say in essence is that you have to set up the customer, the vendors, the inventory items, and the chart of account for each of those locations, one after the other. All right. Now, to set up your customers, because of time constraint, I'm quickly going to put you through. So it's pretty simple. You can do that from your dashboard by clicking on customers, or you click on customers from your menu bar and go to your customer center. All right. Then at the upper left hand side, you can see the new customer and job. So you click on new customer. So right here, you specify your customer name, opening balance, any balance they have outstanding. Then the currency, very important, the currency used in transacting with those customers. Then every other thing you have here are just the basic info, their contact information, their phone numbers, their email address, the company name, and so on. All right, just basic contact information. Then you have your payment settings here. So you have the credit limit for the customer, the price level, the payment terms. When did any transaction you issue out in the name of this customer, when does it becomes due? All right. So that's about the payment terms here. Is it due on receipt, that is immediately you issue out the transaction, or net 15, that is 15 days after the date of the transaction? All right. And so on. So when you are done, you just click on OK. So that's for the customers. On the other hand, for your vendors, you go to your vendor center. You can see that right here, or you click on vendor from your dashboard. You can see that, or you click on vendor here, then you go to vendor center, At the upper left hand side, you click on new vendor. Alright, so you specify their name, just the same environment as your customer. Alright, their name, the balance outstanding if any, and as of what date, then the currency used in transacting with them, and all of that basic information we have here. Alright, then for your inventory items, so one thing you need to know is that if your business area is based on your product or service lines, you deal with retail stores, you also have you deal in consulting service, and there's also logistics. All right, if that is the case, you need to set up each of these products you sell and these services you render one after the other. All right, so how do you do that? So you come to your list, then you have item lists. All right, so here these are my own items already. You can see your Bonfita, the Milo. These are what you buy and sell. Then you can see your delivery. So to create a new one, you click on item, then you click on new. Now, in creating your inventory or your service, you have different types. So the first type, which is service. So your service here is basically for the services you render, just as the name implies, the consulting service, logistics service, whatever service at all. So that is when you are going to make use of this item type of service. All right. On the other hand, your inventory part here, this item type, you use that for the items you buy and resell, your retail items, or the items you buy to manufacture other items. So that is when you are going to make use of inventory parts as the item type. All right. Then you have inventory assembly. So the inventory assembly here is for the items you manufacture, the items you produce in real time. All right. Then your non-inventory parts here basically are your consumables, the item you buy not to resell. You buy them to reuse. For example, your diesel. You buy diesel for the office. You buy them really, but it does not qualify to be your inventory. You don't resell them to anybody. You consume them in the course of your operation, so it becomes a non-inventory part. You have your other charge. So these are just additional charges that you have on your invoices. All right. You have subtotal. So this is not an item type. So this is used to add up some items on your invoices. You have group. So group is used for item bundling. Probably you sell 5 different items, and during a festival period, because it's seasonal, you just decided to add up 4 items together to just be one. Probably you have a wow pack, you have a gift basket, something like that. So that is what we refer to as a group. That is bringing 4 or 5 items together to become a single product as a result of a particular festival, or as a result of a particular season. All right. Then you have your discount. So this item is used to apply discounts on your invoices, and you have payment. Then you have the sales item. So your sales item is for your value added tax and setting up your value added tax. All right. So that is the item type. So I want to set up my consulting service as an item. So you fix in your description here. Then you specify the income account. So I don't have that here, so I can quickly add new. So I have my sales consulting. Save and close. So what the account you have here means that where do you want this service that you render, where do you want it to report to on your chart of accounts? All right. So I'm going to click on OK. So that's about your inventory item. Then the last thing you also need to take note of is your chart of accounts. So it is ideal you set up your chart of accounts. You know what a chart of account is? That is all your accounts, the list of accounts that determines the way our report looks like. All right, so you have your expense account, your income account, your cost of sales account, your assets, your liabilities, your bank, your fixed assets, your current assets, your long-term liabilities, your equity. All right, so these are all your charts. All right, so it is ideal to set up each of your business areas basically as a chart. All right, so you set all of the under your chart of account. For instance, we said we have business areas in the retail, you have business areas in the in delivery, and you have business areas in logistics. All right, now and we have business area in consulting. All right, so you need to set up the income account, that is the sales account, for each of these business areas. You need to also set up the cost of sales, that is the direct expenses account, for each of these business areas as well. And if it has to do with an inventory item, that is the item you buy to keep and resell, you also need to set up inventory items for each of these business areas. All right, so to set up your charts, basically you can click on chart of account from your dashboard here under the company section. You can see your chart of account, or you click on company, then chart of account. So you can see already I have my chart. These are my bank accounts, different account. Now take note that if for each of your business areas you maintain different bank accounts for them, so you have to set up all banks for each of the business areas. Probably in your branch in Abuja, you have a GT bank for that branch. In the one in Port, you also have another GT bank. So you have to set up each of these bank accounts for each of these areas. All right. Now, to create your new chart, so this is what I have here. These are my charts. You can see that I have my income account for, you can see this for delivery, this for consulting. You can see these are for all the items I buy and resell. All right, now if you want to create a new chart, under the account section here, you basically click on new. So the first thing you need to do here is to specify the account type. Very important. So this is what determines what type of account you are creating. All right, is it an income account? Is it expense? Is it a fixed asset? Is it bank? Is it loan? Is it a credit card? Is it an equity? So these are just the major list. So if you can't find anyone here, then you make use of the other account types. So you have your account receivable, your other current assets, your other assets, your account payables, your other current liability, long-term liability, your cost of sales, your other income, and other expense. All right. So having specified the account type, the next thing to do is to select continue. So you specify what is the account name. If it's an income account, what's the name, any description, then you go ahead and save. So basically, that's how you set up your chart. All right, so that is your step 3. So like I said, if the business areas is not, if it's not locations whereby you have different locations, different areas, then you don't need to set up different customers, vendors for each of the business area. You just use one. All right, but if you have different locations where you have different customers for each of those locations, then you have to set them up differently. All right, same for your vendors, same for your inventory items, and same for your chart of accounts. All right, so that is about the third thing you need to know. Now the fourth thing here is, how do you now process your transaction? Now that you have set it up and you have known the differences between each of these versions, how does the class and location feature works in real time in these versions? How do you now process your transaction? How do you process your transaction? All right, now to process your transaction, now one thing you need to know is that as far as you have set up the class and location feature on all your transaction forms, you are going to see where you must select what class does this transaction belongs to. For instance, I want to create an invoice. This is an invoice. I made a credit sale. I want to create an invoice, and I click on create invoice from my dashboard, on all your transaction form, take notes, on all your transaction form, you are always going to have the section where you are going to specify what class that transaction belongs to. And you can see that here. Can you see this is class? So this is where you select. Is this transaction for retail? Is it for consulting? Is it for logistics? If it's for logistics, is it bike? Is it truck? And if it's for a particular location, is it Abuja? Is it Port Harcourt? So as far as you have set up all these particular classes or location, definitely you are going to find that here. So on all your transaction form, let me try to create an expense by making use of my right checks. On all your transaction form, you are going to see, can you see it here? Under the class, can you see where you are going to specify what? So this is the most important aspect. It's one thing for you to set up your classes and location. It's another thing for you to link them, because if you don't link them, then you are not going to get an accurate output, which in this case is your report. So if you don't link them properly with their respective classes or location, whatever the case may be, then you are not going to have an accurate report. So you need to ensure that aside from you setting up the proper classes and location, you also need to ensure that while processing all your transactions, you link them to the right class. All right, so that is for that. So on any transaction you open at all, you are going to see the area where you are going to specify what class it belongs to. However, if the particular transaction is like a general transaction that does not have to do with any class, then you are going to leave it. You are not going to select any class here, but you just go ahead and save. Take notes. So if the transaction does not belong to any class at all right, so it's going to go to, so let's say for instance, you don't keep track of departmental accounting, you just make use of your business areas, and you probably pay salaries. And in this case, salary, you don't do your departmental reporting, so salary is not going to go to any of the business areas. So when you are posting it, you're just going to leave this class section. You are going to leave it blank. All right, or you make payment for taxes. Probably you remit your VAT, you pay for you pay withholding taxes, you pay your payee and all of that. All of this does not even have to do with any business area. Then you can go ahead, when you're posting them, you don't specify any class. All right, so take note that in some instances you might have some transaction that does not belong to any class. So if in this case you just leave them without specifying any class, you just save. All right, so when you come to your online version here, all right, so when you come here, you're also going to discover that on any transaction, so when you want to process any transaction on the online version, just click on this new. This is where you have all possible transactions you want to post. So when I click on my invoice here, you discover that I also have the section where I can specify the class. So you can see that this one even it has two. It has where you can specify the location. Can you see that? And you also have where you specify your class. Can you see that? This is how your class. Is it consulting? Is it logistics? Or is it bike or truck? Is it retail? Can you see that? So let me try to open an expense. On all transactions you open at all, any transaction you want to, be it invoice, be it sales receipt, be it payment, be it expenses, be it journal entry, anything at all, it has the option of specifying what class. Can you see that? Is this for consulting? Is it logistics? Is it retail? For your location here, is it Abuja? Is it Port Harcourt? Is it Lagos? Whatever location is it, as far as you have set them up, you're definitely gonna see it here. All right, so that is your step 4. So you need to take notes that on all your transaction forms you are going to see. So most importantly, you just need to be careful of specifying. You need to ensure that you specify the right class, that you don't select the wrong class. All right, So you specify the right class. All right. Now, the last important thing you need to know here is how do you now generate reports for each of these business areas. All right. So one thing you need to know is that by default, you already have your profit or loss report by class. You have your balance sheet by class. You can see your balance sheet for each of these business areas. That's why I said that you need to ensure that when you're doing your postings, you are specifying what business area, that is what classes this transaction belongs to. All right. So when I come here, under your report section, company and financial, the essence of this basically is majorly for our financial report. Of course, yes, because the reason why we are doing these classes of a thing is basically for our financial report, because we want to be able to track the performance, the position, the cash flow of each of these classes one after the other. So when you come to your company and financial, you can see profit and loss by class. So this is going to break down all the classes. So you can see that here we have actually not posted anything. So if you have posted, you are going to see it break down your transaction class by class. For consulting, you see how much you have made in consulting, how much you have expensed, and what is profit you made on consulting. In retail, in logistics, like that. All right. So the essence, the profit or loss by class here is going to show you the performance by each of these business areas broken down. All right. On the other hand, you also have your balance sheet by class here. Can you see that? So your balance sheet by class here, of course, is going to show you. Now you can see that you have unclassified here. So unclassified here are those general ones that you don't want to, that you do not link to any class. All right. Then you are going to now see for other classes, you'll be able to see the position of those other business areas. All right. Now, if you now want to see the general report for all the business combined, so when you come to your reports, your company and financial, then you come to just ordinary profit and loss standard. So this one is just going to show you everything total. Similarly, when you want to see for your balance sheet as well, you just come to balance sheet standard. So this is also going to show you just your accumulative balance sheet for all the business areas or segments. All right, that is for the on-premise. So when you come to the online, all right, you also see, so when you also come to your report, so in the report section, you just type in class. You can see that you also have your profit and loss by class here. Can you see that? You can see your purchases by class, you can see your sales by class, and you can see your sales by class summary. So these are all the reports you can see for each of your business areas here. So when you go to your profit and loss by class, all right, so this is also going to break it down different classes. All right, so you'll be able to see at a glance how much money you made from each of these business areas. All right, so on the other hand, for your balance sheet, so if you want to see your profit and loss for the group, you can see just this normal one. So this is going to show you your combined profit and loss for the company as a whole. All right, on the other hand, on the QuickBooks Online, we don't have your balance sheet by class the way we have it on the desktop version, but there's a way to go about it really. So when you click on this balance sheet here, this signifies that this is the cumulative balance sheet for the business as a whole. All right. However, if you want to see for a particular class or some couple of classes or locations, then you are going to now go ahead to filter to see for that class. So at the upper right hand side there, you are going to click on the customize button. You scroll down, click on your filter, you scroll down, you want to filter by class. So when you now click on this drop down, it will now say what class do you want to see for. So is it consulting? Is it logistics? Or if it's logistics, is it bike or truck, or is it retail? So you just specify and now click on run report. If you want to see for a particular location, click on this drop down. Is it your Abuja? Is it Port Harcourt? Is it Lagos? Whatever location it is, then click on run report. But if you don't specify anything here, it is still the same combined report that you have for the business as a whole. All right. Now take note that we said that your classes and locations are different on the online version here. So when you come to the report section, if you type out location, you can also see the same way you can see your profit and loss by class. You can also see it by location. You can see your purchases by location. You can see your sales by location, and you can see your sales by location detail and your sales by location summary. All right. So basically, this is how you run your report for each of these areas. So like I said earlier, the most important thing you need to do is to ensure that all of these areas, when you are processing your transaction, you have actually linked them to the right class. All right. So those are the 5 most important things you need to know, right from setting up the classes and location down to knowing the differences between this feature on the desktop and the online version, down to setting up your accounting activities, down to processing your transaction and generating a report for each of these areas. All right, so we can go ahead and drop our question. So I have a question here from Ismail Abdulaziz. What is the difference between inventory part and the assembly? Of course, the inventory part, like I said, is used for the items you buy and resell, or the items you buy to produce other items, while your inventory assembly is used for the item you manufacture. All right. On the other hand, I have another information. That kind of a scenario, I use admin for general purposes. Yes, of course. That is if you are using the classes and location feature for departmental reporting. So I'd like to welcome more questions before we draw the curtain off.